Hello guys, welcome to Bhavna's Online Academy. So in this video we are going to learn Essay 210. Essay 210, this is going to be a complete coverage of that standard and this is applicable for both inter as well as final students. Yes, so before we get into the main content of the standard, let's understand in brief what the standard talks about. Okay, so there is an auditor as well as there is a client. So when we understood the Essay 210 topic, what is the topic? Agreeing the terms of audit engagement. Agreeing the terms of audit engagement. So now what does the heading mean? What is agreeing the terms of audit engagement? What is audit engagement? First, let's understand that audit engagement means nothing but performing of an audit with the help of an agreement. So there will be an agreement between the client and the auditor. Between the auditor and the client there will be an agreement. In this agreement all the terms and conditions of that audit will be present. So that is, if they enter into this agreement, then and when they perform such audit, it will be known as an audit engagement. Okay, so this agreement which is there between this auditor and the client, who will prepare this agreement? Who is going to prepare this agreement? This agreement is going to be prepared by the auditor. The terms and conditions of the audit, etc., etc. What will be in this agreement we'll understand in this essay. But who will prepare this agreement? This agreement will be prepared by the auditor. Okay, the auditor will prepare such agreement and it will send it to the client. The client is going to sign on this agreement and say, okay, I agree to all the terms and conditions which are written in this agreement. Yes, so what is this agreement known as? In the world of audit, what is this agreement known as? This agreement is what we call as our engagement letter. This agreement is what we call as our engagement letter. So an engagement letter is drafted by the auditor and such engagement letter is sent to the client for their acceptance. Okay, I hope you understood this. Yes, so whatever terms are there in this engagement letter, this has to be accepted by the client. So that's where the name comes from, agreeing to the terms of audit engagement or audit engagement letter. Okay, I hope you understood this. So now let's start with what is the objective of this essay. Objective means what is the goal of this essay. So this essay tells that number one, auditor, please check that there are a few preconditions that are present. Now what are preconditions? Precondition means prerequisites. Prerequisites. That means before you enter into that audit engagement or before you enter into that audit, please check whether there are a few conditions which are present. Okay, that is number one. Number two is please make sure that there is an understanding between the auditor and the management. This is more like in a marriage situation, no, where you check, there are a few conditions which are present or not. The girl or the boy will have a few conditions. You'll check whether the conditions are present or not. If the conditions are present, then only you will get into that marriage contract or marriage agreement. If not, you will not get into it. The same way, if the preconditions of audit are not present, the law says, the standard says if it is not present, don't accept the audit engagement. Okay, until the law says to. If the law is not specifically telling the auditor that you have to enter into this audit engagement, then if preconditions are not present, please don't accept. Okay, otherwise in this one case alone, you can, even if the preconditions are not present, but if the law is telling you to, you can accept the audit engagement. Or else if the preconditions in normal circumstances, if it is not present, no need to accept such audit. Okay, so what are such preconditions we will study. The second thing, what you do, you see whether there is a common understanding between the boy and the girls. The same way you have to check whether there is a common understanding between the auditor and management. Okay, so this is the objective of essay 210. So now what are the preconditions we have to understand? What are the preconditions of such audit? So there are two aspects of such preconditions. First one is you have to check whether whatever financial statements are prepared, which is given by the the client. This financial statements only the auditor will have to audit. You have to check whether such financial statements are prepared according to the applicable financial reporting framework or not. Okay, yes, so this is a must, because if suppose it is a normal company, okay, and if their financial statements is prepared according to the banking act, then there is a no point of auditing this financial statements, because the base of this financial statements is wrong. So anyway, your opinion is going to be like this is not correct only. So first check if the basic applicability they have taken it right or not. Applicable financial reporting framework only they have applied or not. The second precondition is that there are a few responsibility of the management that they have to acknowledge. Okay, so there is a few basic management responsibility that they have to acknowledge. First is that the management should make sure that the financial statements are prepared according to the financial reporting framework only. The second one is internal controls are also the responsibility of the management only. That inside the company you must place some controls. Let it be any sort of any sort of organization or anything, there will always be something known as controls. If example, even if you are at home, okay, even if you are at home and you're taking like 1,000 rupees from your mother or father, they are going to ask you by the end of the day that where have you spent this, how have you spent this. So that is like a control that they have put on you. Even though they are giving you money, they are asking you where and how you have spent. The same way in a company, a lot of activities take place. So for that lot of activities also, internal controls will be there. Without control, any place is going to be a mess. Okay, so this internal control should also be a management's responsibility only, and that management should understand that. The third one is, this is the most important one, where the management should acknowledge that they should provide a auditor with few things. They should provide the auditor with a few things, that is AAU. Okay, first is access to all the information, second one is additional information, third one is unrestricted access. So auditor will tell, first give me access to all the information of the company. The management will say okay. Then the auditor will say, if there is any additional information which is required apart from what you have given here, then that also, if I request, you have to give me. The management will say okay. The third one, the auditor will tell you that you must give me unrestricted access. That means no restriction on me. Unrestricted access to all the persons of the entity. Then the management also has to say okay, only if these three the management accepts, along with this internal control, this and this, then it means that the preconditions for an audit are present there. If all of this goes well and good, then that means preconditions of an audit are present there and you can accept the audit. Okay, yes, I hope you understood what are the preconditions. Okay, so we have understood the first objective. The second objective is the common understanding between the auditor and the management. How are you going to come into a common understanding? You can get into an agreement to come into a common understanding. What do we call the agreement? The agreement is known as your engagement letter. Okay, so what should be the content of such engagement letter is what we are going to understand. And always remember, this engagement letter should be in a written form. It should be in a written form. Okay, so we have made a mnemonic here. So how you can remember this is sorry. So the auditor is telling, okay, sorry management, but you have to accept to this. I'm really sorry, but you don't have a choice. You have to accept to all of this contents or all of this terms and engagement. So sorry. Okay, so first in that engagement letter, you have to define what the scope is and what the objective is. Objective means what is the goal of the audit. Scope means what will be the nature, timing, and extent of the audit. So these both you have to agree. The next is what will be the responsibility of the auditor, like expressing an opinion, etc., etc. What will be the responsibility of the management? Example, giving you all the information, unrestricted access, and all of that. And then the next is identification of applicable FRF. They both have to agree to what is the applicable FRF, okay, according to their company. And then what will be the expected form or report? What is the report format that the client is expecting from the auditor? So the auditor will write that I am going to issue an audit report. Okay, yes, and then the agreement, when the agreement is going to go to the client will see, okay, the auditor has told that he's going to prepare an audit report, and in that he will give an opinion. Okay, fine, this is the expected form or report we were also expecting. So then they will sign on it. Okay, so this is the content of engagement letter. Sorry, scope, objective, responsibility of the auditor and responsibility of the management, then applicable financial reporting framework, and what is the expected, what is the conclusion the both are expecting. So they have to write that conclusion also. Okay, so from the start, from the goal to the end conclusion, you have to cover it all. Okay, so this is your content of your engagement letter. Next one is, what if the management is putting a limitation of scope. So here in the audit engagement letter itself, the auditor would have mentioned what the scope is. Now what happens is that prior to the acceptance of audit itself, prior to all the acceptance happening itself, what happens is that the client says that this scope we cannot allow you to check to that nature, timing and extent. You have to reduce your nature, timing and extent. If the client says so, and if the auditor feels, if the client says that in your engagement letter you have written that you will check up to this much, suppose this much checking he has to do. Suppose auditor has said that he is going to check suppose this much, okay, but what the client is telling is that no, you cannot check this much, I'll only allow you to check this much amount, that is very little amount, okay. So if the auditor then feels that because of this limitation of such scope, because of such limitation of scope, if he will have to disclaim his opinion, that means this is a bad opinion. Okay, now what are the types of opinion we learn in the later part of standards in your SA 700 series. But for just for now, you understand that this is a bad opinion. Because the client is only letting you check so little, you will have to give a bad opinion. Then, in such case, don't accept that audit. At the end of your audit, what is your aim? That you have to give an opinion, okay, and what everybody hopes for is that the opinion is good, okay, but at the starting of the audit itself, prior to the acceptance of such audit itself, if the auditor knows that because of such limitation of scope he will have to give a bad opinion, then what is the point of doing such audit itself? Don't do the audit, don't do the audit, okay. That's what the limitation of scope is telling you, okay. Yes. Okay. So what, just let me tell you one more thing. What will happen if they put a limitation on the scope? That means you will not be able to get sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. If for 1,000 sales samples, it is only sufficient that you check 100 sales samples, and if the client is telling you you can only check one sales sample, then that is not, then that is pointless. You will not get your sufficient audit evidence, okay, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So because of limitation of scope, this is the drawback, okay. Yes. Next, let's understand the acceptance of change in engagement. Okay, so here what happens is that if the client is coming to the auditor, if the client is coming to the auditor and the client is, requesting the auditor that before the completion of an audit, they have started with the audit is ongoing. Okay, before the completion of an audit, the client is coming to the auditor and telling the auditor, can you please make a few changes to the engagement letter? Can you please make a few changes to the engagement letter? By which what will happen is that this auditor will be only be able to provide a low assurance. Due to such changes, the auditor feels that he will only be able to provide a low assurance. Then in such case, he has to see whether such changes should be made by him or not. So here what has happened is the audit has started. The audit has started, the audit has commenced, but before the completion of audit itself, the client is coming to the auditor and telling the auditor that, please, we want you to make a few changes. We want you to make a few changes to the engagement letter. But the auditor feels that, if they make such changes to such engagement letter, then they will have to end up giving low assurance only. Whereas it is an auditor's responsibility and an auditor's objective to give minimum reasonable assurance, correct? So if the auditor feels that he will only be able to provide a low assurance, then in such case he has to see whether he should make such changes or not. If the changes which are told by the management are reasonable, then the auditor can accept. But if the auditor feels that the changes with the management are saying are unreasonable, then in such case don't accept the changes. One, you can withdraw from that engagement, okay, even if you are in between of the audit, you can withdraw such engagement. You are saying I'll no more do this audit, or you can go and discuss this with the TCWG. Okay, so who is TCWG and who is management? So management is a level, and above management there are a few more people who are TCWG. TCWG. Okay, so they are a higher level authority than the management. So you can go and discuss with them also that, management is telling that so and so changes has to be made. Okay. Yes. So, what are the kind of changes that the client can request? There might be some change in circumstances because of which they might tell you to change a few things. In the starting, there might have been some misunderstanding. Okay, because of such misunderstanding, also the client will come and tell now that, starting I did not understand. Now only I understood. So please now make the change. I don't want what is there in the engagement letter, or there might be some restriction on scope that they might put. Okay, so it can be any kind of limitation, or any kind of not limitation, sorry, but any kind of request that the client can come up with, and you have to assess whether it is favorable to the auditor or not, and accordingly check whether you want to continue with the engagement or you want to withdraw it, or do you want to make such changes, or do you want to not make such changes. Okay, yes. The last two final topic are, first one, let's understand about recurring audit. Okay, so recurring audit means, so what happens, usually an auditor is appointed to an company, and year after year he is only appointed. Okay, so recurring means year after year you are only appointing, year after year you are only the auditor. So in such case, the auditor, every new year, that means every new year of engagement, that means in every year or every fresh year of engagement, he need not prepare a new engagement letter. Okay, if he feels that all the terms and conditions are going to stay the same, then for every single audit means for the same client, because you're doing it year after year, then every year you need not prepare a new engagement letter. It is on the auditor if he wants to send a new engagement letter or not, or they can actually continue with the same engagement letter itself. Okay, yes, but there are a few instances where you have to consider, where the auditor has to consider whether he has to revise or not. Okay, revise only if, okay, so the auditor will consider in the situations, now I'm going to tell you, in these situations the auditor is going to consider whether the auditor is going to consider whether there is a need of revision in the engagement letter. Okay, the first is, there is some misunderstanding between the client and the auditor, so to correct such misunderstanding he may consider to prepare a new engagement letter. There are a few change in terms, or whether there are a few special terms that they have to enter into, so those extra terms you cannot orally agree, correct, you have to always have it in written format. So to have it in written format, he might have to make a new engagement letter. Okay, next, if there is a change in the ownership, senior management, nature and size of the entity, or the legal or regulatory requirements of the entity, or any applicable financial reporting framework, if there are changes in any of these, then in such case also the auditor has to revise this engagement letter. In such cases also, the auditor needs to think whether he wants to make a new engagement letter or not. So in all these situations, what they are telling is that the auditor may think if he wants to send a new engagement letter. It is not a must. The auditor may think if he wants to send a new engagement letter, but it will be better. Okay, if the auditor thinks it is better if I make a new engagement letter, because tomorrow if there is any question, then I must not be pointed out. So for that, if they are starting itself, if they agree on everything, it's better. In a return format, if they agree, it is better. So in all these circumstances, the auditor may, if he think it is appropriate, he may enter into a new engagement letter. He can draft a new engagement letter. Otherwise, if it is a recurring audit, he need not do it. It is upon his judgment, and if he wants to do it or not. Okay. Yes. So the final topic that we are going to understand is the content of the engagement letter. The content of the engagement letter. So above here, you understood the content of the engagement letter on a broad perspective. Here they are telling you few elements which you can enter into. Few elements that you can enter into. Okay, one, what are your fees? You can put that in your engagement letter. The auditor can put his fees and the billing arrangements. Suppose he's telling that fees also has to be taken care by the client, plus if there is any travel charges, that also client only has to take care, so that and all he can put in the engagement letter. Then the auditor can also say that in the engagement letter the management should provide any return representation that it is needed according to SA 550. If there is any return representation which is required, that also management has to provide. Such thing also he can put in the engagement letter. Then any arrangements regarding the planning and performance of audit, or if the auditor is thinking that it might be necessary to involve any expert or other auditors, or if the auditor feels that it might be necessary that he wants to involve the internal auditors of the company as well as the staff of the entity. So if there is any arrangement which is required by the auditor, that also he can put in the engagement letter, so even the management knows about it, that how he has planned this audit, how he is going to perform his audit. Like, you need not tell your entire plan and performance, an overview that you're going to go this and this way. Okay. if you're going to involve other auditors and expert, if you're going to involve the internal auditors of the company and staff of the company, if only the company knows, they can make arrangements, for the internal auditors and the staff of the entity to cooperate with the auditor, or else how will they know that they have to cooperate? So all of this, see, in the engagement letter itself, it's better if you note all these down. Okay. And plus, one more important thing that you have to put into that engagement letter is that, so here they tell you that the fact that due to inherent limitations of audit and internal control, there is an unavoidable risk that some material misstatement may not be deducted. So this standard is telling you, in the starting itself, auditor, please inform the management that there might be some material misstatement. Material misstatement means what? Material misstatement means any error. Okay. Any error or any what do you say, any wrong in the company might be there, which might affect the decision of the users, so there might be some material misstatement, there might be such a misstatement, such a error which is material means so big that it can affect the decision, economic decision of the users, and such material misstatements might go undetected by the auditor. The auditor will not be able to detect every single material misstatement, every single error the auditor will not be able to find out. So there might be a few material misstatement which might go undetected by the auditor. Why it happens? Why is auditor telling that it might go undetected? Because what happens is that there will be inherent limitations in the audit. Okay, that there will be a few things which the auditor can do nothing about. Suppose if there are 1 lakh sale transaction, he cannot check all those 1 lakh sale transaction. It is an inherent limitation because he does not have that much time. Now the client will pay so much for him to check every single thing. Correct. So there might be a few inherent limitation because of which he will not be able to detect all the material misstatement. So this is an unavoidable risk that the management has to understand. The management cannot tomorrow come and question that, why your report was not 100% correct. It cannot be 100% correct because of the inherent limitations. Okay. Yes. So this also you can put up in your engagement letter. If you have to understand better about this inherent limitations and this material misstatement, I've already uploaded chapter 1 and chapter 4 videos on my YouTube channel, the playlist of which will be in the description box below. This I'm talking about inter students. Final students will already know. So inter students, intermediate students can go and watch that video, so you'll understand better about what is inherent limitations and misstatement and etc, etc. Okay. Yes. So this was all about your essay 210. So essay 210, what did we understand? Let's quickly get an overview. It was talking about agreeing the terms of audit engagement. So in audit engagement letter, what are the terms that you have to put in is what this essay talks about. So first it spoke of the objective, where it told that check the preconditions are present or not. If they are not present, don't get into such audit, and check if there is a common understanding between the auditor and management by entering into an engagement letter. So preconditions of an audit, what should be the content of the engagement letter? If there is a limitation of scope which is put on the auditor prior to the acceptance of audit itself, what he should do? If there is any changes in the engagement letter after the acceptance of audit or in the ongoing audit, what should the auditor do? If it is a case of recurring audit, that the same auditor is only doing the audit again and again, then in such case what you have to do, and what should be the other contents that you can put in your engagement letter. So this was all about this standard, and I hope you understood this. If there is any doubts or questions, you can do let me know in the comment section below. You will find this notes on my Telegram channel. Yes, and all the other details will be there in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to like, share, and also subscribe to the channel, and please make sure you share it with your friends so they are also benefited out of this.